Throughout its 2,000-year history, the Catholic Church has been led by more than 260 popes, each leaving their own imprint on the faith, the Church, and at times, the world stage. Yet, among them, a select few stand out not just as religious leaders, but as transformative figures whose decisions reshaped doctrine, challenged empires, and redefined the Church's role in global affairs. These popes weren't just shepherds of the faithful. They were visionaries, reformers, diplomats, and even power brokers who steered Catholicism through turbulent centuries. In this video, we explore 7 of the most powerful popes in history, examining how their leadership altered the course of Christianity and left legacies that still resonate today. 1. Pope Francis, the modern reformer of compassion. From the moment he stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in 2013, Pope Francis signaled a new era for the Catholic Church. As the first pope from the Americas, the first Jesuit pope, and the first to take the name Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, his election broke centuries of tradition. But more than symbolic change, Pope Francis has championed a spiritual and structural renewal of the Church, rooted in humility, mercy, and reform. One of his earliest and most striking acts was choosing to live in the modest Vatican guest house rather than the grand apostolic palace. This decision reflected his broader commitment to a humble papacy, one that stands in solidarity with the poor and marginalized. Pope Francis has repeatedly emphasized that the Church must be a field hospital for the wounded and a refuge for the forgotten, not a fortress of privilege. A central focus of his pontificate has been confronting the Church's gravest internal crises, particularly the widespread sexual abuse scandals. While the Vatican's response has remained controversial, Francis has taken unprecedented steps to increase accountability. He created new mechanisms for investigating bishops, defrocked high-ranking clergy accused of abuse, and convened a global summit to address the crisis head-on. Beyond internal reform, Pope Francis has used his global platform to promote social justice, environmental stewardship, and interfaith cooperation. His 2015 encyclical Laudato Si called for urgent action on climate change and criticized the exploitation of the Earth's resources, a groundbreaking move for a pope. He has also worked tirelessly to build bridges between faiths, becoming the first pope to visit the Arabian Peninsula and signing a historic document on human fraternity with a leading Muslim cleric. Francis's papacy is marked by a pastoral tone that emphasizes mercy over judgment. He has encouraged a more inclusive church, famously asking "Who am I to judge?" when questioned about LGBTQ+ individuals. He's also opened doors for greater lay involvement, especially among women, and pushed for decentralization of church authority. In a world plagued by division, Pope Francis stands as a moral voice calling for unity, compassion, and active love for the poor. Though his reforms have sparked both praise and pushback, there's no denying that Pope Francis is one of the most transformative and powerful popes of the modern era, leading not from a throne, but from the heart. 2. Pope John Paul II, the global unifier and Cold War hero. Pope John Paul II, born Karol Józef Wojtyla in Poland, was elected pope in 1978, the first non-Italian pontiff in over 450 years and the first ever Slavic pope. His papacy, one of the longest in history at over 26 years, was marked by a tireless commitment to global outreach, moral leadership, and an unshakable stand against oppression. Revered by Catholics and admired across religious and political lines, John Paul II was not only a spiritual leader but a historical force who helped reshape the 20th century. Rising from the shadows of Nazi occupation and Soviet domination in his homeland, Pope John Paul II brought a deeply personal understanding of political tyranny to the world stage. His unwavering support for human freedom, dignity, and spiritual resilience made him a powerful moral voice during the Cold War. Perhaps most notably, he played a significant role in the downfall of communism in Eastern Europe. His 1979 visit to Poland sparked a spiritual awakening among the Polish people and galvanized the Solidarity movement, a trade union and civil resistance force that eventually led to the collapse of the communist regime. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev later acknowledged that without John Paul II, the collapse of communism would not have happened. Beyond geopolitics, John Paul II was a tireless traveler, visiting 129 countries and logging more miles than any pope before him. His global pilgrimages were not mere ceremonial visits, they were powerful expressions of unity, hope, and the universality of the Catholic faith. Whether addressing youth in massive gatherings like World Youth Day, praying with indigenous peoples, or standing with the oppressed in the developing world, John Paul II made the Vatican a visible and compassionate presence on the global stage. He was also a fierce advocate for human dignity, particularly defending the sanctity of life and the role of women in society. While maintaining traditional church teachings, he emphasized the importance of respecting women's contributions and vocations, calling for their greater involvement in social, political, and even ecclesial life. His theology of the body offered a profound reflection on love, sexuality, and the sacredness of the human person. John Paul II stood firmly for social justice, opposing war, the arms race, poverty, and the death penalty. He also made bold moves in ecumenism and interfaith dialogue, most famously becoming the first pope to visit a synagogue and a mosque, and convening interfaith gatherings for peace in Assisi. Despite suffering from Parkinson's disease later in life, he remained a beacon of perseverance and faith. His dignity in illness and death in 2005 moved the world, with crowds chanting Santo Subito, Saint Now, at his funeral. He was canonized in 2014. Pope John Paul II's legacy is immense. He was not only a religious leader but a bridge builder, freedom fighter, and global unifier. His moral courage, visionary leadership, and profound compassion have earned him a lasting place among the most powerful and transformative popes in Catholic and world history. Quick pause before we continue. Welcome to Sacred Pulse Times, where faith meets truth and timeless stories come alive. If you're passionate about Christian history, inspiring lives, and spiritual insight, you're in the right place. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a heartbeat from the global Christian community. Let's keep growing together in faith and knowledge. 3. Pope John XXIII, the kind shepherd who modernized the Church. Pope John XXIII, born Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, is often remembered as Good Pope John for his warmth, humility, and approachable demeanor. But behind his gentle smile was a visionary who courageously led the Catholic Church into the modern age. Elected in 1958 at the age of 76, many expected him to be a transitional, caretaker pope. Instead, he astonished the world with bold reforms and compassionate leadership that would reshape Catholicism for generations. His most enduring legacy is undoubtedly the Second Vatican Council, Vatican II, which he convened in 1962. It was the first ecumenical council in nearly 100 years and arguably the most transformative in church history. With deep pastoral concern, John XXIII sought to open the windows of the Church to the modern world. Vatican II introduced sweeping changes. Mass was now celebrated in the vernacular rather than Latin, empowering lay participation. The role of bishops and the laity was enhanced, and the Church's relationship with other Christian denominations and religions was redefined in a spirit of dialogue rather than division. His call for aggiornamento, or updating, signaled a new era of openness, inclusivity, and relevance. Long before his papacy, John XXII's sense of compassion and justice was evident. As a Vatican diplomat during World War II, he used his position to help thousands of Jews escape the Holocaust by issuing baptismal certificates and visas, often defying Nazi and fascist authorities. His moral courage and quiet heroism saved countless lives and earned him posthumous recognition by Yad Vashem as righteous among the nations. John XXIII also took a historic step in healing centuries of Christian-Jewish tensions. He initiated the removal of anti-Semitic language from Catholic liturgies, including the Good Friday prayer that had long referred to Jews in derogatory terms. He received Jewish leaders with kindness and was known for greeting Jewish visitors with the words, "I am Joseph, your brother," echoing the reconciliation between Joseph and his siblings in the Book of Genesis. During the height of the Cold War, Pope John XXIII emerged as a global voice for peace. His 1963 encyclical Pacem in Terris, Peace on Earth, called for universal human rights, disarmament, and peaceful coexistence among nations and ideologies. Addressed not only to Catholics but to all people of goodwill, it was a groundbreaking moment in papal diplomacy, emphasizing the Church's moral role in global peacebuilding. What set John XXIII apart was not just his bold reforms, but the love and humility with which he led. He refused lavish papal trappings, visited prisons, and engaged with people from all walks of life with sincerity and empathy. He once said, "See everything. Overlook a great deal. Correct a little." This philosophy embodied his compassionate approach to leadership. Though his papacy was brief, just 5 years, it ushered in a revolution of spirit and structure within the Catholic Church. His canonization in 2014, alongside John Paul II, affirmed his enduring significance. Pope John XXIII will forever be remembered as the kind-hearted shepherd who opened the Church's doors wide to the world, offering a message of hope, renewal, and unity. 4. Pope Pius XII, the controversial protector in World War II. Pope Pius XII, born Eugenio Pacelli, led the Catholic Church during one of the darkest and most dangerous periods in modern history, World War II. His papacy, which began in 1939 and spanned through the end of the war into the beginnings of the Cold War, was defined by complex diplomacy, moral urgency, and controversial silence. Often a figure of intense debate, Pope Pius XII left behind a deeply layered legacy as both a secret protector of the persecuted and a spiritual leader navigating treacherous global politics. From the outset of World War II, Pius XII sought to keep the Vatican officially neutral. His goal was to preserve the Church's ability to act as a mediator and a safe haven for the oppressed. This neutrality, however, did not imply inaction. Behind the scenes, Pius XII authorized covert operations to help rescue Jews and other victims of Nazi terror. Monasteries, convents, and even Vatican property were used to shelter thousands of Jews. It is estimated that under his indirect guidance, as many as 800,000 Jewish lives may have been saved, making the Catholic Church one of the largest networks of resistance and refuge during the Holocaust. Still, Pius XII's decision to avoid explicitly naming the Nazis in early public condemnations has sparked decades of controversy. Critics argue that his failure to vocally and frequently denounce Hitler and the Holocaust was a moral failing that allowed evil to thrive unchecked. Supporters, however, maintain that he worked strategically to avoid retaliation against Catholics and Jews, especially in occupied countries like Poland. They highlight his 1942 Christmas message, which lamented the persecution of hundreds of thousands who, through no fault of their own, sometimes only because of their nationality or race, are marked down for death or gradual extinction. Though indirect, this was understood at the time as a reference to the Holocaust. Pope Pius XII also orchestrated extensive humanitarian aid throughout the war. The Vatican distributed food, clothing, and shelter to refugees, prisoners of war, and civilians across Europe. Under his leadership, Vatican radio became a vital tool for communicating moral guidance and coded messages of resistance. His diplomatic efforts included appeals to Axis and Allied leaders alike, consistently calling for peace, negotiation, and compassion amid the bloodshed. Post-war, Pius XII was praised by many, including Jewish leaders. Chief Rabbi of Rome, Israel Zolli, even converted to Catholicism, taking the name Eugenio in honor of the Pope. However, in later decades, as more Holocaust archives emerged, scholars questioned whether Pius XII did enough, soon enough, and loudly enough. Despite the controversy, his role during World War II remains one of the most studied and debated aspects of 20th-century papal history. In 2009, Pope Benedict XVI declared Pius XII venerable, moving him closer to sainthood, a decision that reignited both admiration and criticism worldwide. Ultimately, Pope Pius XII's legacy as the wartime pontiff is a portrait of a man who walked a tightrope between diplomacy and moral duty. Whether viewed as a quiet hero or an overly cautious statesman, his actions had undeniable impact, saving lives and maintaining the Church's presence in a fractured, war-torn world. 5. Pope Innocent III, the papal powerhouse of the Middle Ages. Pope Innocent III, born Lotario dei Conti di Segni, reigned from 1198 to 1216 and is widely regarded as one of the most powerful and influential popes in the entire history of the Catholic Church. His pontificate marked the height of papal authority in medieval Europe, a time when the pope was not only a spiritual leader but a dominant political figure, able to rival kings and emperors. Innocent III redefined the papacy as a central force in both religious and secular affairs, transforming it into a supreme arbiter of Christendom. From the moment he ascended the papal throne, Innocent III made it clear that he believed the Pope was the vicar of Christ on earth with supreme authority over all Christians, including monarchs. He famously stated that the Pope was like the sun while kings were like the moon, deriving their authority from the Pope. He used excommunication and interdicts as tools to discipline wayward rulers, including King John of England and Emperor Otto IV of the Holy Roman Empire. When King John defied the Pope's authority, Innocent III placed England under interdict and eventually excommunicated the king, forcing him to submit and accept the Pope's choice for Archbishop of Canterbury. Innocent III also used his power to address corruption within the Church. He cracked down on simony, the buying and selling of church offices, enforced clerical celibacy, and demanded moral reform among the clergy. He promoted the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215, one of the most significant church councils of the medieval period. The council produced nearly 70 decrees that defined church doctrine and discipline, including the establishment of annual confession and communion for all Catholics, reaffirming transubstantiation, and tackling heresies. Innocent was instrumental in strengthening canon law, turning it into a comprehensive legal system for the Church that would be used for centuries. He centralized church governance by enhancing the authority of the papal curia, the administrative body of the Vatican. This allowed for greater control over local bishops and dioceses, ensuring that the Pope's will could be enforced across all of Christendom. He was also deeply involved in launching crusades. Innocent III initiated the Fourth Crusade, although it infamously ended in the sack of Constantinople, a Christian city, rather than in the liberation of the Holy Land. Despite this, the Pope saw crusading as both a spiritual and political tool to unite Europe under papal leadership and channel Christian aggression toward external threats. Under Innocent III's leadership, the Church achieved a level of political and spiritual dominance unmatched before or since. He was a master of diplomacy, theology, and law, using all three to craft a vision of a united Christian Europe under papal guidance. His legacy laid the foundation for both the power and controversies that would define the medieval Church, making him a towering figure in ecclesiastical history. Whether revered for his ambition or critiqued for his authoritarianism, Pope Innocent III shaped the Catholic Church into a centralized, formidable institution that exerted unprecedented control over European life. His reign remains a key turning point in the history of both the papacy and medieval Europe. 6. Pope Leo I, the diplomat who faced down Attila the Hun. Pope Leo I, also known as Saint Leo the Great, served as pope from 440 to 461 CE during a time of great peril and transformation for both the Roman Empire and the early Christian Church. Widely celebrated as a masterful diplomat, spiritual leader, and theological scholar, Leo I's pontificate solidified the role of the papacy as both a religious and political institution in the crumbling Western Roman Empire. One of his most iconic moments came in 452 CE when Attila the Hun, the fearsome leader of the Huns, marched toward Rome after devastating much of northern Italy. As panic spread across the empire, Leo took the unprecedented step of meeting Attila personally near the city of Mantua. Historical accounts, blending fact and legend, describe how Leo, flanked by imperial officials but armed only with his moral authority, persuaded Attila to turn back and spare Rome. While the exact reasons for Attila's retreat are debated, including possible logistical challenges or a bribe, the moment cemented Leo's legacy as a courageous defender of Rome and a spiritual force capable of influencing barbarian kings. Earlier, in 455 CE, when Rome was sacked by the Vandals under Genseric, Leo again took a leadership role. Though unable to prevent the sack, he negotiated with the invaders to spare the city's inhabitants from wholesale slaughter and destruction, showcasing his commitment to humanitarian principles and his exceptional negotiating skills in times of extreme crisis. Theologically, Leo I made a monumental impact through his Tome of Leo, a critical doctrinal letter sent to the Council of Chalcedon in 451. In it, he articulated the dual nature of Christ, fully divine and fully human, in a single person. This clear, authoritative explanation of Christology helped shape the Council's final definition and became a cornerstone of Orthodox Christian belief. Leo's theological leadership elevated the Bishop of Rome's voice in ecumenical councils, reinforcing the Pope's spiritual primacy in Christian doctrine. Pope Leo also emphasized the dignity of all Christians, urging believers to embrace humility, charity, and faithfulness. He preached about the spiritual equality of rich and poor, leaders and laypeople, reinforcing the Church's universal message during an era of social and political upheaval. After the barbarian invasions, Leo played a vital role in restoring the moral and administrative order of Rome. He worked to rebuild the spiritual life of the city, strengthen church discipline, and restore public confidence in the papacy. Under his guidance, the papacy emerged not just as a religious center but as a stabilizing institution for a world in collapse. Leo's legacy is enduring. He was the first pope to receive the title the Great and was later declared a doctor of the Church. His ability to balance diplomacy, theology, and pastoral care in a time of war and doctrinal controversy helped define the papal office for centuries to come. In the face of chaos and collapse, Pope Leo I demonstrated that moral conviction, articulate leadership, and unshakable faith could defend a civilization and transform the Church's role within it. 7. Pope Gregory VII, the reformer who rescued the Church from corruption. Pope Gregory VII, born Hildebrand of Savannah, was a fearless reformer who fundamentally altered the relationship between the Church and secular power during one of the most corrupt and chaotic periods in Catholic history. Elected pope in 1073, he inherited a church plagued by widespread simony, the buying and selling of church offices, clerical immorality, and royal interference in spiritual affairs. Rather than be daunted, Gregory launched one of the most transformative reform movements in church history, what came to be known as the Gregorian Reforms. At the heart of Gregory's mission was a bold effort to purify the Church and restore its independence from kings and emperors. He issued decrees banning simony and enforced strict celibacy among clergy, believing that the spiritual authority of the Church was compromised by worldly entanglements. But perhaps his most explosive act was his prohibition of lay investiture, a long-standing practice where secular rulers appointed bishops and abbots, effectively controlling the Church's leadership. By declaring that only the Pope had the authority to appoint bishops, Gregory directly challenged the power of emperors. This bold stance led to the infamous investiture controversy with Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV, culminating in one of the most dramatic moments in papal history. After excommunicating Henry, Gregory was stunned when the emperor traveled across the Alps in winter to the castle of Canossa in 1077 and stood barefoot in the snow, begging for forgiveness. This event symbolized a major shift in the power dynamic between the papacy and the monarchy, showing that even the most powerful secular ruler could be humbled before the authority of the Pope. Although Gregory later faced exile and died in relative obscurity, his reforms left an enduring legacy. He firmly established the principle that the Church should govern itself without interference from temporal rulers. His actions inspired future Church leaders to uphold clerical integrity and institutional independence. Gregory's vision of a morally upright, spiritually authoritative papacy reshaped the medieval Church and laid the foundation for later ecclesiastical developments. By confronting corruption and resisting imperial control, Pope Gregory VII redefined what it meant to be pope, not just a spiritual leader, but a guardian of moral authority and institutional reform. His legacy continues to influence the Church's understanding of leadership, accountability, and its separation from political entanglements. Power for purpose. Throughout history, the papacy has been more than a religious office, it has been a beacon of spiritual guidance, moral authority, and political influence. These 7 popes didn't simply wield power for its own sake, they harnessed it with a clear sense of purpose, shaping not only the Catholic Church but the broader course of world history. From navigating tumultuous political landscapes and facing down invaders to reforming church doctrine and advocating for justice and human dignity, their leadership was marked by vision, courage, and an unwavering commitment to faith. Each pope on this list faced unique challenges, whether it was Pope Francis confronting modern scandals with compassion and openness, Pope John Paul II's pivotal role in ending oppressive regimes, or Pope Leo I standing firm against barbarian invasions. Their legacies demonstrate that true power in spiritual leadership is rooted in service, humility, and a forward-thinking dedication to both the Church and humanity at large. Their stories remind us that spiritual authority can be a force for profound transformation when wielded with integrity and a genuine desire to uplift others. These popes not only defended the faith in moments of crisis but also inspired millions through reform, dialogue, and peace-building. They set examples that resonate beyond religious boundaries, illustrating how purposeful leadership can heal divisions, inspire hope, and leave a lasting impact on the world. In reflecting on these powerful pontiffs, we see that real influence comes not just from the position one holds, but from the purpose behind one's actions. Their enduring contributions encourage all leaders, spiritual or secular, to lead with vision, compassion, and a commitment to the greater good. The legacy of these popes is a testament to the transformative potential of power when it is used wisely and for a higher cause.